A combination of factors, some local, some international, hit the market pretty hard, costing investors dearly. So are there value propositions in the market? Your Wealth is next. Welcome to Your Wealth, and today we are having a special discussion on the stock market. Now, investors lost over $50 billion in the stock market within the first 6 months of the year as stock prices fell like 9 pins. In fact, stocks such as Caribbean Cement, Gleaner, Lasco Financial Services, Lascelles de Mercado, and Carreras lost their luster, suffering double-digit losses within the period January 1 to June 30. Now, in terms of the recognized stocks, the biggest losers in order were Caribbean Cement, down nearly 60%, Gleaner 33.6%, Lasco Financial down 32%, and Mayberry down 31%. Now, well-managed and profitable companies such as NCB, Scotia Group, and Grace Kennedy Group did not escape unscathed during the review period. Now, some analysts attribute the major downturn in the market to economic uncertainty, driven mainly by uncertainty over a well-needed IMF program. Now, in the past, many astute players have made a fortune in the stock market. So, is it all gloom and doom at this juncture? Now, with me to address the vagaries of the market as well as possibilities for better is Donette Johnson, Senior Trader at JMMB. Donette, welcome to Your Wealth.
Thank you for having me, Owen.
First off, Donette, is it fair to say that much of what is happening in the marketplace, the downturn, is due to economic uncertainty?
I would say it has very much to do with the current economic environment, as the stock market is just a microcosm of what's happening in the wider economy. We have seen year to date much of the listed companies performing well with their financial results, which were released for the last reporting period. So it's not that the companies are not still performing, it's just the macroeconomic conditions, and the post-budget we have seen reduced investor confidence. Much of the companies too would have been impacted by the 0.2% asset tax. So that too would have contributed to investors seeking to liquidate their positions at this point, given the uncertainty going forward. Now, stock prices have become very attractive once more, and certainly I would not encourage investors to give away their stocks. I mean, the period of uncertainty may go very well into next year. So, I mean, for those who may need cash, they will sell. But on the buying side, we want to look at the buying opportunities, given that much of them have fallen off over 30%, and in one instance, 60% we have seen on Caribbean Cement. Now, speaking to Caribbean Cement, they had transferred a part of their debt over to the parent last year, which is Trinidad Cement Company.
Yes.
And Trinidad Cement Company has been going through a little roller coaster ride in restructuring their debt over the past year. They recently reported that they have been successful in making arrangements with their creditors going forward. So the company and debt payments should start by the end of December this year. So the company then is looking forward to sustainable profits, say from next year onwards. So Caribbean Cement of itself at $1.20 where it's trading at now is pretty much a long-term buy, and I wouldn't look to them for any immediate dividend payments. They have sort of slugged off dividend payments over the last number of years because of the reduced profitability. But in terms of capital appreciation going forward, certainly they could be considered as a long-term buy. NCB, that price has fallen off to the extent it has because it is a cross-listed stock, and given the vagaries of the markets, they always strive to be equilibrium across markets. NCB is also listed on the Trinidad Stock Exchange. No, the price there has fallen off to $1.60 due to a main seller in that market, and that equates to roughly $21.95. So at that point when it had fallen, NCB was trading at $24.
Yes,
so
yeah.
one could see that there was some attempt to bring the prices in equilibrium. Now NCB is settled at $22. I'm not expecting any further depreciation in the price, and they recently announced that in conjunction with the wealth management arm, NCB Capital Markets, they will be seeking to acquire Advantage General Insurance
Yes.
Company. So there are still opportunities in the market because, I mean, if you're patient, the unattainable suddenly is attainable.
All right, let's look at Scotia Group, and one of the two media companies listed on the stock market, the Gleaner. Scotia Group is highly profitable. They are a creditable organization. What is impacting their stock prices? Is it do you think the asset tax is one of those things impacting on the investor confidence in the stock?
That is a contributor because Scotiabank has one of the largest asset bases in the country, and persons would still hold it in the long term. There has been a lot of selling pressure on it, bringing it down to the $21 price range, but it certainly is still attractive on dividend payments because they're paying over 43 cents per quarter this financial year. So it is still an attractive stock, and it has stability of earnings. So, investors will continue to hold a Scotia Group, but it's general uncertainty with the asset tax and when that will take effect.
Now, what about the Gleaner? The Gleaner is one of those stocks showing a double-digit decline within the review period we're talking about. What's happening there?
That too has come under a bit of pressure. I'm seeing a bit of portfolio repositioning there, with much of the trading volume settling at $1.40. Gleaner Company over the past number of years have been impacted by advancement in technology in other arenas where persons have access to information over varied means. So they are still struggling with that and how they can better meet the needs of the reading public. So a certain amount of regeneration or creativity needs to come into how the company will position itself going forward. But they will still seek to maintain market share in their current stance. I still see them as a force out there in the media arena going forward.
Yeah, because certainly in terms of credibility, they are probably the most credible media entity
and they're very
Jamaica.
widely read.
Yes. And they have a lot of positive history surrounding the paper. But you're saying, and the group is highly diversified,
Yes,
because
it is.
they have an online portal, and of course they have a radio station affiliated to the Gleaner. Now, Donnet, fascinating stuff. Many traditional players in the market are wondering, when will this bear season end? And are there some value propositions in the market? I'm putting you on the spot with that. What would you say are the value proposition? You're an well-known senior trader in the marketplace, and whatever you say has a ring of credibility.
Thank you for that vote of confidence, Owen. Certainly with prices coming off, we have seen very attractive opportunities in the market. We cannot ignore the junior market stocks. The Lascos have been doing well. Blue Power has been doing well since being listed, and they continue to hold a lot of interest for investors. So even though we see wide price swings in them, then they still hold a value going forward. Lasco Manufacturing, or the whole Lasco group, they are building a a big complex out in White Marl, St. Catherine, over 100,000 square feet, and that should centralize much of their operations. Lasco Financial has acquired or signed an agreement with MoneyGram to carry forward their services. So that's expansion happening for Lasco Financial, and the recent acquisition of the SVL Cambio too broadens their network. So those are the opportunities on the junior market. Looking to the main market, certainly the stocks we have to look at with strong fundamentals, strong opportunities for growth even in this depressed environment, and hold good value. Dividend income stocks too would be attractive. Some of those that readily come to mind, Supreme Ventures, which has started to pay dividends on a more regular basis, they are attractive at the $2.30. Certainly the financial sector stocks still hold the value despite the asset tax which has been imposed on them. Over the long term, we have seen these companies perform even in a depressed environment. If you think back to the crisis of 2008, these companies were still afloat then, and we don't see them crumbling under this pressure now. So the value is still there across the financial sector stocks, and there are one and two others which Supreme Ventures have mentioned. On the junior market, certainly there is still a bit of attraction there.
Yeah, and particularly with the most of them still, all of them still enjoying that tax-free
status.
Status. Yeah. Supreme Ventures is an interesting case because Supreme Ventures is a gaming company. And of course, gaming, it's disposable income. Why are you so optimistic about Supreme Ventures at a time when the disposable income of most Jamaicans has declined? That disposable income is waning. But why is it so optimistic?
I'm still optimistic because that investment dollar will still find a home in the stock. With regard to revenues, we still see that somehow in this environment, persons still tend to gamble a lot, and they are getting very dynamic too in how they expand. Last year we saw them going through and contracting a bit, closing down those operations which weren't very profitable, and really focusing on expanding the operations of the profitable ones and improving and refurbishing these entities. So it is not so much focused on gambling, but getting in other revenues elsewhere.
They're diversified.
Yeah. So it always helps in a slow or in a downward environment that companies are diversified, and those companies tend to stay afloat and have much longevity.
Now let's look at a company like Grace Kennedy. I notice you have mentioned Grace Kennedy among the value proposition, but an interesting quest. They have a rather interesting quest, and that is to earn 50% of their profits outside of Jamaica by the year 2020. And they seem to be making some progress in that regard with diversification in the food and money sector, in other domains. What do you think about that conglomerate? Is it a value proposition or isn't it?
It is a good value proposition for Grace Kennedy. Getting in revenues from other sources is always good. So you're not solely dependent on the Jamaican economy to grow revenues. We have seen some other Jamaican companies who have succeeded via this avenue, going outside the region too. So it is still a good value proposition, and they too increased their dividend payments last year. So with the stock at its current $55, it certainly is a very good buying opportunity as well. And this is from a stock share price high of roughly $120 a couple years ago, and the price has fallen off to these levels. So it's really a factor of market confidence, investor confidence, and the whole economy why we have seen the share prices going down. But certainly diversification of the companies is what's going to help them now.
What part do you think a good management structure and indeed corporate governance at the board level play in the successful running of companies, the innovative spirit of companies? Do you think in this environment the companies with a strong corporate governance structure, a strong and innovative management team will be the ones who will survive?
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
We have seen over the years that the management and composition of boards has influenced the investor in whether or not they should purchase the stock. So if they have confidence in the projects being put forward, the way ahead, because a lot of our investors have become more savvy and really comb through the annual reports to see where the companies are going. So they do look at the corporate governance as well as the management structure, and companies will now seek to hire creative minds to really get their companies moving and to be more competitive in a global marketplace.
Well, Donna, it has been a pleasure speaking with you on the market. And
thanks for having me, Owen.
Great. Well, that's your wealth for today, and of course my guest was Donette Johnson, the senior trader at JMMB, and of course Donette is licensed to give such advice. That's your wealth.